All right, we're officially live. Can you hear me, Evan? Hey, Evan? Hey, Evan, are you there?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm just having a little bit of technical
I
difficulties.
hear a little bit of an echo. Yeah.
Yeah, should. Looks like I'm just having a little bit of technical
I
difficulties.
hear a little bit of an echo. Yeah.
What about that? Yeah, should. Looks like I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulties.
I hear a little bit of an echo. I can see you like it looks normal. Oh, you're on mute. I can see
All right, can
you
you hear me
like
now?
it looks normal.
Should be good now.
Hang on, I'm gonna try and turn off my headphones. Give me a second. I can see
All right, can
you like it looks normal.
Should be good now.
Hang on, I'm gonna try and turn off my headphones.
All right.
Give me a second.
Thank you, everybody, for just experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties.
Oh, I hear like a weird echo, man.
Thank you, everybody, for just experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. All right. I think I figured it out. Can you hear me now? Looks like we should be good to go.
I can hear you. Hopefully there's not that echo.
Yeah, I think we solved the issue.
Okay, cool. Hell yeah.
Woo. Awesome. Well, what a great start. What's up, Evan? Thank you for hopping on tonight, and thank you for everybody who's watching live as well. Just to dive in a little bit about myself, my name is Zack Petrocca. I'm an agent over in the Northern Hudson Valley region, primarily focusing on Greene, Ulster, Columbia, and Dutchess counties. I have a team with some agents and assistants that service all these areas, and we're hopping on with Evan Rugen, who has grown up in Chatham, and I'll let him introduce himself, but has really invested a lot of his time and energy into sourcing deals and investing in the Hudson Valley. So he's here with us tonight to just chat about his experiences, what he's been going through, kind of the process that he's taken on for his building his investment portfolio, and a little bit about what he thinks he's going to see in 2023. So Evan, if you want to chat a little bit about yourself, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I am from this area originally. I've lived in Manhattan for the last 9 years, where I spend 95% of my time. I'm upstate, maybe 1-2 days a month just to check out what's going on. Started as a real estate agent. COVID hit. Wanted to get to the other side of the table. Built a platform that sources off-market deals. Now I purchase off-market deals through a syndication model, typically 25 to 30% below market value, with my own capital and investor capital.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now, when did you get it started with investing into your own deals?
The first home I bought was October 3rd, 2019. I bought a single-family home in Hudson, New York for $48,000.
That's awesome. And I think I saw that you were listing that for sale, or
it's actually that's on the market right now. We listed it at $465.
Okay, cool. So what a come up from that then, right?
Yeah.
So what was that process like, getting your first deal? Like, where did you kind of source the funds? Where did that kind of come from? Because you were in real estate before that. You didn't just kind of dive right into the investment side. So how'd you kind of get your first deal? What was that experience like?
Yeah, that one was just straight Zillow. Like, I had an offer in somewhere else about to sign the contract. I really didn't have a great feeling about it. That house is still vacant. Thank God I didn't buy it. But yeah, I didn't know how financing worked. I was essentially just like a rental agent in New York City. So I bought the property all cash. I put in, $48,000, and then I funded the renovations all cash. That was like $175,000, and pretty much, just like didn't understand the concept of financing, and it was a very stressful experience. We got out of there alive. When we finished the renovation, they deemed that the value was $400,000. I'd put in around $225. I'm like, okay, I like this. And since then, each year the property has made about $60,000, which is more than triple my monthly debt service.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so that one's available for sale for 465 in Hudson, and again, netting 60K. It's a pretty great deal. But that's awesome. And so now, how many properties do you have?
I own about 15 properties. Some of them are multifamily, some of them are single family, but primarily single family.
Okay, and they're primarily in the Hudson Valley, all in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, all in the Hudson Valley. It's important to have economies of scale. You don't want to have one property here, one property there, especially when you're first starting off. If you have one property somewhere, but it's a tremendous property, yeah, you can pull it off. But just when I was starting off, I wanted to build sort of an army of a bunch of different single families in a select area.
Yeah, for sure. And are you managing those deals yourself, or you have a property manager?
I have found people and converted them from other industries. They've sort of become like the property managers and cleaners and things of that nature. And if something breaks or something is not working, we have full-time contractors on retainer.
That's awesome. Okay, sweet. For anyone that's watching, if you guys wouldn't mind putting in the comments section, if you're on YouTube or even on Facebook, how many properties you have, or if maybe you're looking to be building your portfolio, maybe even what you're looking to focus on, whether it's short-term, long-term flips, and maybe we can throughout the next 10, 15 minutes kind of specifically focus on that. But just to give an overview of what we'll just chat about for the next 10, 15 minutes is Evan's thoughts on the process of buying an investment property, what his experience has been like, do a little bit of a deeper dive into that, and my thoughts as well. We'll dive a little bit into some of our towns that we would recommend, or that we're personally looking at in the Hudson Valley for investments this year and next year, and the reasonings even behind that. And then we'll also dive into some market insights for the remainder of this year for what we expect is going to happen. So that being said, what is your A to Z, Evan, on sourcing a deal or finding a deal or just getting started with building your portfolio? Do you mind kind of just running through some of the steps?
Yeah. So one thing I've definitely realized lately, or been thinking about lately, is like people want to jump right into a media. Like you really have to set aside a few days to just really think like, all right, what is my end goal here, and build backwards. It's so easy to just jump right into something, and before you know it, you have no systems, you have no operations, and you're getting a deal here, getting a deal there, finding funding here, finding funding there. But like, if you can set up systems and operations and actually do it on a well-oiled machine, if this happens, then we do that. If this happens, then we do that. You'll be in a much better spot. You also want to think about like what your end goal is with all of this. Like Zach, like when you're working with a buyer, what are people looking for? What's your most common request, I guess, from what you found?
Yeah, well, when I'm just looking for a general buyer, most of our buyers are coming from New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, and they're looking for a second home, generally 10 to 15 minutes from a village where they can go eat at a restaurant, generally a 3-bed, 2-bath, or 1.5 bath. And they tend to be looking for privacy as well. I would say that's one of our largest requests that we get, kind of the criteria.
Yeah. So with that being said, so Zach is really out there working with buyers, working with sellers. That's what people are requesting. You want to build that asset because that will that will sell for the best premium. So our model, what we sort of do is we find these off-market deals. For example, the house I'm sitting in. This is a 3-bed, 2-bath farmhouse. We bought this. It needed a ton of renovation. The plumbing was completely shot, needed new electrical, needed foundational work, needed 2 bathrooms, needed a kitchen, but we got it way below market value. We put in some renovation. Now it's an operational short-term rental. We will then exit this property in probably another 6 months, but we turn this property from there's actually 2 different houses on the residence. There's a house and there's a side house. We turn this into a house we bought for $400,000 to an estate that generates about $125,000 a year with a fully enclosed pool that will sell for close to $1 million, and we got it for $400,000. So you want to sell these properties with everything in place, so when that buyer does come along, your property is ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. So what I kind of heard you say is start with the end in mind, put your operations in place, and essentially also put your team in place, right?
Correct.
So like some of the people that are involved that you want to kind of start to identify as your team is going to be, maybe who your real estate agent is or the agents in which in the marketplace you're looking in that you can network and connect with. You'll also need in New York State an attorney, right? So you can maybe identify maybe who you're going to be utilizing for an attorney and maybe, start learning a little bit more about the contracts and things like that. You may be utilizing a lender, whether that's a private lender, hard money lender, or just a conventional lender. And if not, it's going to be cash. And then, an inspector and or contractor, I would say as well, right? Because you may get the property inspected, you probably should, or you're going to at minimum have your contractor run through the property with you or with the inspector as well, so you can even get estimates for the cost of the renovation if that's going to be, kind of the project you're taking on. Yeah, and then I think that kind of dives into what I would also suggest to my clients as well is determining what your buy box or your ideal avatar investment property is, because that kind of, you can start with the end in mind as to what you're looking to purchase. So that way, when you're going out in the marketplace and you're networking with these agents and attorneys and inspectors, you can also relay to them and communicate to them exactly what you're looking for. So when that opportunity comes up, you can either say yes to it or no to it and move on. That I think that also dives a little bit into our next step, but I think it's really important to kind of break down the requirements you're also looking for in that project. And you can have multiple as well. It's not just one, avatar investment property that you can kind of put. But that's something that I also recommend, identifying or determining your buy box.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all facts.
Now, what's something that's in your buy box as an example? It doesn't have to be maybe your exact one right now, but what's one in the past? What are some properties, criteria of the property investment that you're looking for?
Something extremely unique. I mean, we bought something on Sleepy Hollow Lake that's in Greene County that's shaped like a soup can, and people love it. People cannot get enough of a house that's shaped like a dome. They think it's the craziest thing. So short-term rentals, there's nothing constraining supply. People will continue to list their properties, and what's going to get crushed is the okay property, the average property. No one's going to stay there. You need something extremely unique. You need a hot tub. You need neon. You need something that's Instagram friendly. You need something that's different because you can't just have the same product as someone else. There's nothing differentiating you. So we aim to have just very unique looking properties, whether it's the view, the actual property itself, the landscape, if there's any water on the property, just something to make it different and in a big way.
Sure. And now, is that primarily for short-term rental properties, or are you just looking at in general for
short-term rental properties? Yeah, short-term rental properties. And the thing about short-term rental properties, it's essentially an asset class that got created overnight. So it's still developing and maturing. But if you can do it well and you can do it on an institutional level, you can just blow all these mom and pops out of the water.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, especially in the Northern Hudson Valley region where we're a big tourist destination. So, there's a lot of people that are coming up here that are, looking to just stay for the weekend. And I would also say that the short-term rental market did inflate quite a bit over the last couple of years, which does tie into short-term rental regulations that have popped up in a lot of the different towns around here. So, I mean, if you are getting into that and you're starting to kind of put your criteria together and the towns in which you're going to be looking in and putting your team together, it's good to also identify, especially for short-term rental, but also for long-term rentals, what the laws and regulations in those areas are. I actually have a really helpful document that I share with all of our, investor clients that are looking to do short-term rentals that breaks down all of the towns in the Northern Hudson Valley region and all the laws and regulations around short-term renting in each of them, because they vary from municipality to municipality. So it's important that if you're looking in these specific areas that you're, for instance, Woodstock has a limit on the number of licenses they'll give out. It's 250. I believe 250 or 260. So they only give out a certain amount of short-term rental licenses in that town. So if you're looking to get a short-term rental in Woodstock, it's probably good that you're aware of the laws in there, and if you're able to obtain a license, if there's one available, so on and so forth. But for sure. So
Great point, because that really affects the investability of an asset. If you're, for example, this property is in the middle of Claverick, and no municipality, so there's no regulations. But obviously in Hudson, there's a 60-day limit.
yeah, exactly. Hudson is another one of those for sure. So just to recap, putting together a team ahead of time, determining your buy box, your criteria, having the end in mind. Next step really would be, sourcing the deal, finding the deal, whether it's off market or on market. What are some of your suggestions or ways that you found off market or on market deals? Because I know you primarily do find off market deals, and that's your niche. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So any lawsuit is public record. So that means anytime someone defaults on a payment, anytime someone's late on a payment, that's public record. The essentially the mortgagor is suing the mortgagee for payment, and that's public record. You can get that on searchiqs.com and search Columbia or Greene County. So you can just go through that list and see everyone who's behind their payments, everyone who's missed their water bill, anyone who's missed anyone who has water shut off lists. It's all there. It's super dry information. It takes a very long time to go through, but you can see exactly who's in distress, because honestly, a lot of people, they can't pay the realtor fee. They can't afford it, and they need money fast. They need to transact. That's how we've gotten 90% of our properties is through these people that, we've gone to properties where people have within 15 hours, the next day, they're losing the deed to their house, and we save them, and they walk with, $50,000-$75,000 they never would have gotten. So it's cool, obviously, to get an off market deal, but at the same time, we're giving these people money that they never had access to.
Yeah. And that's such a creative way to get in contact with people that have a high motivation level to sell. And it's a win-win situation as well, right? Because you obviously want an off-market opportunity that's going to be low cost to you, so you have a higher return. But that seller, that homeowner, literally needs to sell to satisfy whatever maybe that issue is.
Right.
So you are essentially kind of brokering this win-win situation. So going direct to seller, and how do you contact? So where do you kind of get those lists? You said that they were public records. You find them online, or you're purchasing lists, and then how are you contacting those homeowners?
Yeah. So public record, you get their information, you get the name, you get the address. Go to skipgenie.com or reisif.com. There's a whole bunch of them. They give you all the emails and phone numbers affiliated with that person. You also have their home address. If you really want to get in, go knock on their front door. So phone, email, in person.
Yeah, for sure.
And then work this out. Once you buy a few, realtors sort of know what you're doing. We've gotten a lot of inbound, hey, this person, wants to transact. This person wants to transact. So we've also had a lot of inbound leads.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it ties in when you're networking with other people. It's so important to be out there and one, if you don't have credentials, it's more so just, networking with other people and knowing what you're looking for and communicating what you're looking for. And I think especially when you're networking with agents, because agents get so many people that want to be investors, want to get their properties, and inbound, conversations all the time, but not everyone is always serious or ready to pull the trigger. And so if you're very serious and you're hungry to move forward, and you are networking with these specific realtors in specific areas, and showing that you are serious, they tend to be really loyal to providing you with some potential off-market opportunities, or, heads up on new listings that are coming soon and things like that, because you as a investor are remaining top of mind to that agent in that region, which is also can be, super beneficial. And that applies to not just agents, but anyone else in the marketplace, through networking. So that's, sourcing off-market deals. On-market deals is obviously working direct with for sale by owners, or the list, sourcing the listing agent. Like you said, you found your first deal off Zillow, and then that's an option for a lot of people as well. At this point, on a ratio, do you find more off-market opportunities for yourself or on-market deals?
Off-market. Off-market, it's not even close. Yeah, probably 80% of our deals are off-market.
Yeah. And this is a big question that I tend to get as an agent is, once you find a deal, right, how do you determine if it's the right deal, right? And I can share my thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so definitely get an inspector in there. That's worth that $250, $200 that you pay them. The amount of times you'll go back, you'll reference them. The amount of knowledge in that report is incredible. Yeah, you definitely have to know what you're buying. Like for example, you could buy a house, but behind the walls there's no insulation. That's $15,000 fix right there. You have to know what
Yeah.
electrical you're buying. You have to know what the foundation is, what the roof age is. So yeah, so there's a number of factors. Did I answer your question correctly?
No, yeah, we'll continue to dive in there. So going back a step, we sourced a deal. Let's just say it's an off-market opportunity. Okay. We finally got that conversation or call back from the seller from one of our mailers, and that seller is like, "Sure, I'll sell my property." How do you then determine whether that property is going to be the right fit or seller is the right fit for you?
Right. So comps, obviously looking at comps, looking at what other things have sold for in the area, looking at AirDNA, seeing what things have transacted for in terms of Airbnb, how much you can expect, looking at Zillow rentals, getting a feeling for that area, and just like a general sense. A lot of it is just like gut feeling. Like, oh, okay, like I think if this was, it's like creativity is really just like seeing something that somebody else can't see. So a lot of times I'll buy things. People are like, dude, why are you buying that? And then 6 months later, after it's fixed up, people are like, submitting offers like off market to like buy the property. Like there's that much interest in it. So it's a variety of factors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, to kind of not clarify, but to dive into, like you mentioning comps, figuring out, what the fair market value of the property is, for those that are kind of in the newer age of running comps, you really want to focus on the ones that have sold beforehand, not just the active, or not really even the active doesn't really hold much weight to the actual value of a property, because anyone can ask anything, so you kind of really want to focus on the properties that did sell, and what, to kind of show what a buyer is actually willing to pay for that particular product. And from there, I also suggest, essentially going into underwriting the deal. I mean, after you get in contact with the seller, if you have an interested party that's willing to, further the conversation with you, I mean, the true next step is try to get that person in person, set an appointment to meet them at their house and walk the property. So you can kind of get eyes on the product and on the property itself. So that way you can, one, get a gauge of the seller, but two, also get a gauge of the property and the work that might be needed if it's one of those properties. And then from there, running your comps, doing your research. Zillow does allow you the opportunity to be able to go and look at past sales. If you are an agent or have access to the MLS, obviously running it through there. Or if you network with an agent and you're able to then network with them and let them know you have a deal and want to kind of get their thoughts on it, that's something that you tend to be able to do as well. And I know, Evan, you've utilized a lot of really good underwriting templates, which is essentially this process of being able to pull comps and compare properties to figure out the actual fair market value of the property. And then you have a different course action for the kind of investment that you're going to utilize it for, whether it's going to be a short-term, long-term rental, or it's going to be maybe a BRRRR or a flip. You kind of have a breakdown, and I know it could be a spreadsheet or utilizing bigger pockets and their calculators, but some form of underwriting to determine the fair market value. And then of course, determine the after repair value, if that's the case. And then also, figuring out then from there, what your max offer is going to be. I know there's some people have quick little gauges, and I think you have one as well, Evan, of, if you determine this is the fair market value of the property, I think you will only pay 70% of that fair market value. So there's a 30% gauge. Is that?
Yeah, we're opportunistic, so every scenario is different. What I've been saying a lot lately is, look, I'll give you your price, but you have to use my terms. So say they want $500,000 for the property. I'm like, fine, I'll give you $500,000, but I want interest only payments for 5 years at 2%.
Yeah,
it's happened. People have signed the line that's dotted. Some people are just put a foot in their mud. I'm not budging. This is my number. I'm like, great, sounds good. Well, I'll do that if I only have to put 5% down and get 3% interest for 15 years. Some people will make that deal just so their ego can win. So it's really, obviously with interest rates and where they're at, it's really made an interesting landscape.
Yeah, totally. So that actually dives into the next step. Really, is once you've underwritten it and had that conversation with the sellers, making an offer. And generally, I like to make sure all offers are in writing, so that way the communication is extremely clear. But if it is verbal and you're just having an open conversation with the seller and you're letting them know your price and kind of doing the negotiation, you know. The offer is going to be the purchase price, but like you said, it's also going to be the terms, which can be just as important as an investor, especially when utilizing creative financing, like you mentioned. So would you mind touching on kind of what you were talking about a little bit of, your creative finance options? So you found a deal and you're willing to give the seller that price, but in order to, you want these terms, and utilizing creative financing, which in that case was seller financing on interest only payments for 15 years, which is a great term for you, but can also be a great term for the seller, right?
Crazy terms, yeah. But
Yeah,
people have done those deals before, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, look, a year ago now, interest rates were 3%. Now they're what are they, Zach? 5.5, 6?
6.25 as of today.
Yeah. So what sellers do not realize is, okay, now as a buyer, my money only goes like 70% as far. So I can't give you the same price from a year ago.
Yep.
Like, but they just cannot compute that a lot of the time. So you make, look, if it's a $500,000 house, I'll give you the 20% down. I'll give you the $100,000. You just have to act like a bank, and I just pay the 3%, interest every month, and I deal directly with you, as opposed to going to a traditional bank where I only get 70% of my dollar and pay 6.5%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when
No, it's a fantastic way to go. And
another thing to that is, okay, someone wants to sell their house and they lined up. Typically, people spend an average of 7 years of their house. They have this beautiful 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 3%. Why would I go to the bank, line up new debt at 6% when I could just take over their payments at 3%? I can
Mhm.
give them their price now because I'm the highest bidder, because no one else is doing that methodology of taking over the payments of the previous seller. A lot of the like I know you understand this concept, but like we put seller financing or take over payments on 15 Spring, and so many realtors call me like, "What's wrong with it? What's going on?" Like they just did not understand what it was, and it's such a great tool to be able to purchase real estate, especially with interest rates being where they're at.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, now is the time to definitely do that, and especially get ahead of a lot of other people that aren't utilizing that option. And in more cases than not, sellers are willing to discuss that. I would say I noticed that opportunity rise more on off-market opportunities than I
Oh yeah,
do if it's on market. If the home's on the market and listed with an agent, it's going to be a bit more difficult to get creative financing out of the deal. But it's not impossible. There are some sellers that are open to it. I think some of the difficulty that I've come across with those with creative financing with other agents is the other agents' lack of knowledge of creative
right,
financing and the
right,
ability to communicate that to their seller.
yeah,
And so it just gets confusing. They get overwhelmed. They don't communicate it right. So the seller's confused and they're overwhelmed. And then they just say, you know what, we don't want to deal with it.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where if you're direct to seller, working with an agent that does understand that concept and can communicate that properly, it's
Huge.
super effective. It saves you a ton of money,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
with the way interest rates were last year.
100%.
So we're at making an offer. We made our offer. We're doing our due diligence, making our inspector go through, our contractor go through, and then essentially from there, if the deal's good to go, we're attending the closing and beginning the project. So that's really the process, step by step. We covered creative financing as well. So we've mentioned either taking over a current existing mortgage if it is assumable. Not all loans are assumable, depending on if that how the mortgage was written, but some of them are. So you need to get those
But even
details.
if it's not assumable, you can still just take over the payments. If a bank is getting their monthly mortgage, they don't care. You
Yeah,
know, I know I don't personally. I know someone who has over 200 subject twos, and they've never had. If you look at the fine print, it says the bank has the right to call the note. He has over 200 mortgages. Not a single note has ever been called in his like 25 years of doing it.
yeah.
So
So
there's an element of
Yehuda
risk
actually
to
just
everything, but it's very, very small.
Yeah, so we got a question here from Yehuda. He's access we're referring to sub two, which you just confirmed that we were. And then if yes, how are you dealing with the bank potentially finding out that the deed was transferred?
Yeah, so exactly what we just spoke about. So they have the right to call the note, especially with default rates skyrocketing. If they're getting their monthly mortgage, they're not going to want to investigate. Like they're not they're in the business of lending money. They're not in the business of owning properties. They hate foreclosing. It's a lose-lose scenario.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I hope that answered your question, Yehuda. Now, so we've talked about creative financing, but there are additional loan options as well. I've kind of touched on private lending and hard money. Do you have any experience with some of those options? And do you mind sharing your experience on those and just tell a little bit about what they mean and are?
Yeah, there's a bunch of bridge lenders or hard money lending. It's essentially you need to tie up a deal quickly, and a lot of the times these properties aren't financeable. They need a lot of work. So you get them up to speed, you get them with a renter or Airbnb tenants, and then it's someone where you can get conventional lending. You can get a 15, 20, 30-year term. So essentially it's just short-term debt on these properties.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. If anyone has any questions, again, you can start to pop them in. I know we're running a little behind, but I'd love to continue chatting, Evan, if you got time.
Yeah.
Some
Let's
of
do it.
this.
I got another probably 15.
Perfect. If anyone any questions about loan options or creative financing or about the process of sourcing, underwriting a deal, making offers, throw them in the comments now. What I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on, Evan, are some of the communities in the Hudson Valley that you're keeping an eye on, and for whatever reason, you're keeping an eye on them. And I'll share some of the towns that I am as well.
Yeah, I really like Claverick. That's where I'm at right now. It's just outside of Hudson. There's no regulation, anything. I've seen a lot of cool like institutional projects happening, from like yoga retreats and like wine vineyards and stuff like that. Like really cool like wedding destinations. You're also close to the train, which is cool. I like Saugerties. I haven't spent as much time as I'd like to spend there. I like Saugerties. You're close to Wyndham. You're close to Hunter Mountain, where also you are close to like a city municipality of Saugerties. Yeah, those are my two picks.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Sleepy Hollow Lake is awesome. Like it makes no sense. I have a home there. There's 850 properties in this community. Beautiful lake, such a cool community, pool. Like there's a YMCA right there. It's really great for the New York City buyer because like everything is taken care of.
Yeah.
Like I see these people like come from the city and they'll buy like a farmhouse, and I see him like a year later. I'm like, dude, you don't look so good, man. Like, oh, the plumbing went, the septic, all this stuff. But like, maybe if you move from the city, that'd be like a really good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. And there's not a lot of private developments like Sleepy Hollow. So Sleepy Hollow Lake, that's in the town of Athens and Kosaki. It's split kind of right in the middle. So just north of Catskill there. So I would say Saugerties is also on my list. There's a few reasons as to why. I mean, its location is pretty prime with it having its own exit off 87. When people travel to Hunter and Wyndham Mountain for skiing, snowboarding, and just vacationing, they get off the Saugerties exit when they're coming south from the city. And so they get off that exit. They tend to stay in Saugerties as a stop on their way up. It's also a cute little village and town that's very close to Woodstock. It's more affordable than Woodstock as well, because you have West Saugerties that borders Woodstock. And there's a lot of new developments that are kind of happening in that town. One of the biggest ones that I've been seeing lately that just recently got its approval is the Winston Farm development in West Saugerties. So this is in the town of Saugerties. It's let me double check. Actually, I should have. It's a huge development that's happening in the West Saugerties community. Basically, what they're looking to do is they're looking to develop hundreds of multi and single family housing. They're looking to put a boutique hotel up there. They're looking to create cabins, campgrounds, and a bunch of different commercial spaces and technological parks. So they're really looking to develop that particular area in Saugerties, which is really interesting to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, link. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I'll share that. I should have had it up, but I didn't. That's cool. It's 800 acres. I wanted to make sure I had the acres right. So it's 800 acres that they're looking to develop, and they just recently got it's such a development project where they're not ready yet to break ground in any way, but they're starting to get certain approvals, and looking to create specific requirements for the project. But it's going to be a really, really big project for Saugerties, and I don't see any reason why it's not going to go through. Another one that's similar, though, is Kosaki. Kosaki is starting to kind of get a little bit of a name for itself. It's a town that I know not a lot of people have heard about in the past. And so everyone's slowly starting to recognize that Kosaki is just a little bit north of Catskill. It was actually just in the New York Times a couple days ago, which was kind of cool. It does have a lot of different government facilities and the county jail, which I do look for just for job stabilization for long-term renters and things like that. They also received a $10 million state grant a few years ago to revitalize the village, and they've already completed reconstructing the waterfront park, which looks like absolutely gorgeous. There's also a big developer there named Andrew Flack, and he's building a hotel and event center. And the event center is supposed to host 400 guests, and they're just about done with completion. So there's a lot going on in Kosaki, and I think it's a great opportunity because, again, not a lot of people, I think, have their eyes on it yet. So I think we're still in the early stages of the development of that town. Obviously, there's Catskill that was also in the New York Times recently. There's a number of businesses that have opened up in Catskill recently over the last 2 years. They also requested a $10 million grant to revitalize the village from the state. And there were a few large businesses that moved in there, one of them being Foreland right on Water Street, which that's an 85,000 square foot building on Main Street and Water Street, which I didn't realize how large it really was.
That's crazy.
But they're hosting artist studios, weddings, private events, and a bunch of different programming. So they just really officially opened this past year. So they're very new to the community. And the Lumber Yard, which is a 17,000 square foot sports and entertainment property on Water Street, is up for sale for $11 million. So if that sells and turns over, that's going to be another big project. But there's also Kingston. Kingston's going to be seeing a lot of transformation over the next few years. There was actually a big development right on Broadway, two of them. But one of them is 143 apartments and a boutique hotel with a 9,000 square foot retail space that got site approval in Q4 of last year. So they're starting redevelopment there right on Broadway. There's been a lot of activity there too. There's also a $22 million development on Cedar Street right in the heart of Kingston, which is focusing on affordable housing, which Kingston does need. But that's some of the towns that I've been keeping
that 70-unit development in Hudson, right by that new brewery. It looked like now that the brewery's finished, that's like the next thing they have in store. I think that's going to be like a really, like that upper Hudson area. I know Hudson's so developed, but the upper Depot area, there's Return Brewing, and then Upper Depot right across the street, Little Deb's right there. That little pocket's getting really cool.
Yeah. That's actually exactly where my office is. Right in that little nook there. Sam C actually just asked, are they pushing for HOA regs in Sleepy Hollow Lake for short-term rentals?
They are not. So you can actually research this. I actually spoke to someone about this today. So there was a very large lawsuit that was like 3 or 4 years of so they tried to regulate it in like 2014, 2015. And then all the people on the HOA, they got together and they sued the HOA, and they established that you cannot regulate short-term rentals for any, like, I'm explaining it extremely poorly, but the shorter answer is they won a lawsuit like 2 or 3 years ago. It was a 4 or 5 year lawsuit that pretty much permits Airbnb for the foreseeable future in Sleepy Hollow Lake. I'm not a lawyer, but look it up online. It's a public lawsuit, so you can read it yourself.
For sure. Yeah, and you can easily call the board there and get any of your questions answered.
Yeah, sure.
I also have the board rules and regulations. I can forward them to anyone if you reach out. I think the only thing that they do, and this was the last time I saw it was a few months ago, they do just require like a permit process through them.
Yeah, it's it's not. It's $250, and then the cars have to have tags. But they're chill over there. They're cool. I bought it. I was kind of scared. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in an HOA, but they're chill.
Yeah, for sure. Mark also mentioned that he sees some development happening over in Hyde Park, and did mention also Kingston's rent stabilization could be tough for older multifamily owners.
True.
Yeah,
that's true. Universal rent control is in Kingston, Newburgh, Buffalo. And I think, that's why a lot of people I think are trying to stay out of municipalities is those municipalities get the rulings first.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Cool. If anyone has any other questions, keep throwing them in the comments. We'll just for time's sake, let's dive into the last section of this is just kind of going into hearing your thoughts on the market for the rest of this year. For anyone that's looking to buy or sell, what are your thoughts on what's going on?
Are you asking the people in the comments or me?
You. If anyone has any questions regarding it, they can throw in the comments though.
Yeah, I mean, like from what I've seen, there's not a lot of turnkey properties right now available in this area. There's a lot of projects and no one can find contractors. So if you have a turnkey product that you want to list, call your boy Zack P. He will list and get the highest number humanly possible. But from what I've seen, I mean, I've listed this property. I've gotten so many calls. I've gotten calls from people from Canada, people in New York City, people in Brooklyn, people moving from Boston. So, I mean, obviously the COVID years of 2020, 2021, be like, oh, there's no buyers out there. No, we're just back to normal. Like we're at a normal level of demand.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I would agree with some of that, and I think in comparison to last year, I think it threw everyone off. I mean, also especially if you've entered the market in that market, over the last 2 years, if you're new to the market and that's all you've experienced before and you don't know what it was in 2018, 2019, just the years before, it feels crazy right now. But the 2022 market stats for Columbia Green Northern Dutchess just actually came out. I'd love to even just share a little bit about that to provide some insight, right? So month over month, what we've been really seeing is new listings are going down, pending sales are actually going up, and inventory overall is shrinking. So essentially what's happening there, right? So new listings were actually down. Let me tell you the stats because it's actually kind of wild. New listings in December of 2022 were down month over month 32%. All right.
Damn.
Pending sales actually increased 10%. So we saw new listings, lacking, and pending sales increasing. So buyer activity is still out there. Overall, because of that, right, inventory then shrank because new listings weren't being replenished. And because of that demand, prices actually moved higher by 16% to 375,000. Days on market slightly increased to 58 days, so 5% increase there. And month supply of inventory shrank, again, because new listings aren't being replenished into the market. And because of that demand, it's going to continue to stabilize those prices and if not slightly increase them. One of the things that I think is important, and I'll just kind of touch on this is, a lot of people tend to, or I think it's important to keep in mind that real estate is extremely local and the data is really respective to each individual area. So something happening in one market in the US or even in New York can have no impact or correlation to another market. So that's not saying not to pay attention to the national data or other data in other areas, but to know that where the data is coming from and refer to it to data for the specific area you're looking to kind of purchase in, because the Columbia Green Northern Dutchess counties are really unique because of its proximity to the city. And that's where we're seeing a lot of our buyer demand coming from. So it's continuing to obviously show itself with what's going on here. What are your thoughts on some of that?
I think it's all accurate. I couldn't say any better myself. I think you nailed it on that one.
Love it. Another thing that I've been, really taking a look at too, and this is a question that we've been getting, where do we see interest rates going? And I would say, looking ahead, I would anticipate that mortgage rates are going to lower right now. Like I said, we're at 6.25, give or take, but I think we're going to see them drop down to about 5.25 in the next, quarter 2, quarter 3 of this year. And the question that I've been getting is why would we wait then? Should we just wait to buy then? And the question that I then propose is, what do you think everyone else is going to be doing? Right. And should that dip in interest rate occur, especially during the busiest months of the year, demand's going to be even stronger, and then competition is going to increase, and it's going to essentially offset the costs that you're just waiting. And if not, like we just saw, the median sales price actually increased month over month. So if that occurs, then your purchasing power, if you are getting a mortgage, it's going to decrease, or your return on investment is going to decrease. So I truly believe now is a really good time in the winter market Although listings are extremely low, and I understand with a lot of my clients, and even if you're on listening right now, it can be frustrating because we're not seeing a lot of new inventory coming to the market. I think that's where a lot of our creative options to source deals or work with other agents to help source those deals is where it really comes in to be beneficial during this time of inventory lacking, essentially. But another thing, have you heard a lot about what's going on with millennials and how, essentially, I pulled some stats. Essentially, last year, they were 43% of home buyers in 2022. And then I also saw that baby boomers and the silent generation hold roughly 37% of home ownership in America. And basically what that shows me is that baby boomers and the silent generation, they primarily occupy most of the home ownership in America at this time. And millennials are shifting into that age, that home buying age, where they're starting to buy. And so there's essentially going to be this generational wealth shift over the next 5 to 10 years as those baby boomers are selling. But a report showed that 85% of baby boomers indicated that they do not want to sell their home in the next year, which essentially is just going to be, again, restricting the inventory that we're going to see over the next year. And I think that's kind of important to realize that, if most of the homeowners in America aren't looking to sell their home, right, that inventory is not going to be replenished, not as quickly as it needs to be with the buyer pool that's coming to the market. So essentially, that's something.
Why would a baby boomer want to give up their beautiful 3% interest rate? They're holding on to that thing, baby. They're not letting that thing go.
Exactly. I agree. Well, I know you got to go. I know I got to go. If anyone has any other questions during this time, throw them in to the comments section. Also, take a look if you're on YouTube or on Facebook. In the descriptions, we have our social media platforms. If you're not following us already, definitely give us a follow. In the descriptions as well, if you're not subscribed already, I have a weekly newsletter that I put out that includes, news, tips, featured listings, highlights, and upcoming local events. So definitely feel free to subscribe to that as well. And then if we haven't already, if you want to schedule a 15-minute strategy call, in the descriptions, there's a link where you'll be able to book that on my calendar. So feel free to check those out. We'd love to connect with you guys and learn a little bit more about the projects you guys have going on. And with that said, Evan, you got anything else you want to share?
No, this has been great. This has been real. Obviously, my Instagram handle is right there. I'm sure Zach will provide information on who is viewing. How many viewers do we have? Were there a lot of
we were fluctuating just under 10 the entire time.
Cool.
Here and there.
Yeah. If you have any other questions, just reach out to me, Bowery, BOI, like Soldier Boy.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great, man. Thank you so much for coming on. You have a great night. All right. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Yeah. Peace.
Right. Bye.